They touched my wife. That was their first and last mistake. I was in the garage, halfway through fixing one of my old fishing rods, when I heard her voice, not screaming, but firm and alarmed. Then came a loud, sharp thud like someone got shoved into the wall. I dropped the pliers, kicked open the side door, and sprinted onto the front porch barefoot, heart pounding and instincts kicking in like a switch flipped in my brain. There she was. Anna. My wife of 20 years, standing with her back against the wall of our front door, holding her shoulder with a wince. And right in front of her were two uniformed HOA enforcers. Both male. Both bigger than her. One of them, a smug-looking guy in his 30s with aviator sunglasses and a laminated badge clipped to his polo shirt, was stepping back like he had just finished pushing her. I saw red. I didn't shout right away. I didn't need to. The silence was heavy. Tense. My eyes locked onto his like a predator sizing up prey. What the hell do you think you're doing? My voice cut through the air like a cold wind. The guy in shades turned slowly, clearly not expecting anyone else to be home. His confidence faltered for half a second before he puffed his chest out and crossed his arms. Sir, your wife refused to comply with the mandatory exterior compliance notice. She was uncooperative. So you assaulted her? I stepped down from the porch. My tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. It carried 22 years of controlled discipline, forged in fire across the globe. I've been ambushed in Afghanistan. I've breached doors under fire in Fallujah. And now two clipboard commandos thought they could intimidate my wife on her own porch? The other guy, a younger one with shaking hands and a mouth that didn't seem to know when to stay shut, mumbled, "We didn't touch her hard or anything." I looked at Anna. She nodded toward the camera mounted just above the door. Good girl. Everything was recorded. You two are standing on private property. You're not law enforcement. You're not welcome here. And if either of you takes one more step toward her, I swear on my oath I'll make sure you leave in a stretcher or a cruiser. Your choice. Their cocky facade cracked instantly. Look, sir, the sunglasses guy started, hands slightly raised, we were just enforcing HOA guidelines. We're not part of your HOA, I snapped. This property sits just outside your boundary. I've got the deed, the legal maps, and the original subdivision contract to prove it. I did my homework before buying this cabin. The younger enforcer opened his mouth like he was going to say something, maybe an apology, maybe more BS, but I was done listening. I stepped forward just enough to make him flinch. I saw their fear now. They weren't used to being challenged. They were used to people backing down. Not today. Not me. Not when you lay a hand on my wife. Get off my porch, I growled. And don't come back unless you're ready to meet a county sheriff. Or a lawyer. They backed away, still trying to look like they were in charge. But their hands trembled. Their pace quickened as they retreated down my driveway. And when they thought I wasn't looking, the guy in shades wiped sweat from his forehead. I turned to Anna. You okay? She nodded, rubbing her shoulder. He didn't hit me hard. Just pushed. But it was enough to set off my back again. My jaw tightened. That was enough for me. I gently guided her inside and handed her a cold compress, but inside, I was already planning my next move. See, this wasn't the first time the HOA had come poking around our place. When Anna and I moved into this lakefront cabin 3 months ago, it was meant to be our quiet retreat, away from the city, away from politics, away from noise. We knew there was an HOA nearby, but our property was technically outside its reach. We verified it with the county recorder, title office, and a real estate attorney. We didn't want to deal with their nonsense. But they wouldn't leave us alone. First came the letters, sweet at first, inviting us to voluntarily join the HOA. We politely declined. Then the tone changed. The letters became aggressive, warning us that our tool shed violated community visual standards. Then they claimed we had unauthorized landscaping. Mind you, we weren't even connected to their community water lines, roads, or services. We were an island on the edge of their kingdom, and they didn't like it. One day, I caught a woman taking pictures of our backyard from behind the fence. She sped off before I could confront her. Then, last week, someone dumped a violation notice in our mailbox, an actual printed citation, accusing us of ignoring HOA compliance mandates. I had laughed it off. Until now. Until they sent enforcers to our door. Until one of them shoved my wife. And what they didn't know, what they couldn't possibly have known, was that I was no ordinary homeowner. I was a Navy SEAL. Retired, sure, but that training never leaves your bones. I've survived ambushes, night raids, hand-to-hand combat, and interrogations. I've stared death in the eye more than once. And I don't let anyone threaten my family. I picked up my phone and pulled up the contact for Sheriff Ramon Mendez. We'd served together in Iraq, he as an Army MP, me with SEAL Team 5. Now he ran the local sheriff's department and always said, "You call me if anyone ever gives you trouble out there." I pressed call. "Mendez here. We've got a problem," I said. "HOA enforcers just shoved Anna. I've got it on tape." There was a pause. "You want me to roll up now or bring a warrant?" I looked outside where the enforcers were now driving away, still trying to act like they'd won something. "Roll up first," I said. "They have no idea who they just messed with. Let me take you back a little, because this mess didn't just start with the shove on my porch. No, this began the moment Anna and I moved into our dream property, a quiet, lakefront cabin nestled on 2 acres of untouched land. We bought it precisely because it wasn't tied to any HOA. No dues, no architectural review committees, no overreach. It was freedom, something I had learned to value deeply after 2 decades of military discipline. But apparently, some people can't stand the idea of someone living peacefully without their permission. The HOA that governed the neighborhood next to us, Lakefield Shores, had been watching us like hawks since day one. At first, it was subtle. We got a flyer in the mailbox the day after we moved in, welcoming us and inviting us to join the Lakefield Shores HOA family. It had cheery clip art and fake smiling people on the front. Anna actually laughed when she read it out loud. We tossed it. Then came the emails. I have no idea how they got my personal address, but they did. At first, they were polite, offering us access to the community pool, clubhouse, and monthly potlucks, for a small, voluntary fee, of course. I replied once, clearly and formally, "We are not part of your HOA. Please remove us from your mailing list." A week later, another email arrived, this time with a PDF titled Guidelines for Compliance and Aesthetic Harmony. I didn't even open it. The emails kept coming. The tone shifted from friendly to firm. They started referencing the county zoning board, claiming that, technically, our land was within the sphere of influence of their HOA. I knew better. I had every document from the county clerk's office that proved otherwise. Our cabin sat just outside the HOA boundary. It wasn't even a gray area. Still, they pushed. 2 weeks later, we noticed a car parked near the tree line behind our property. A woman sat inside with a clipboard and binoculars. She didn't think I'd see her, but I've spotted insurgents hiding behind rocks in the mountains of Helmand Province. She was not subtle. When I approached, she drove off. No plates on the front, windows too dark for legal tint. I got the back plate number and called the sheriff to file a report. The next morning, there was a notice taped to our mailbox, not inside it, because that would be illegal. It read, "You are in violation of HOA guidelines. Your unauthorized shed and use of non-compliant materials must be corrected within 10 business days." It was signed, Lakefield Shores HOA Enforcement Team. I took that paper and brought it straight to the local zoning office. The clerk on duty pulled out the master development map and confirmed, again, that our property was not under HOA jurisdiction. They do this a lot, she said quietly. Try to bully people into joining, especially those on the edge. They're aggressive, but they don't have legal ground. That was all the confirmation I needed. But I didn't just want to ignore it. I wanted documentation. So I began collecting every flyer, every email, every so-called violation they sent us. I even installed an additional security camera facing the driveway. Then came the week where they stepped it up. 3 different enforcers showed up at various times. One took photos of our windows. One peeked over our fence. And then, finally, the 2 men came and shoved Anna on our porch. That was the tipping point. But the most ridiculous part of all this? Their entire argument was based on a lie. You see, I had pulled the development plans and plat maps from the county records before we even bought the place. Lakefield Shores HOA was formed in 1998. Our cabin, along with 5 other parcels along the lake's edge, was zoned as a separate tract under different covenants, no HOA ever included. The boundary lines were clearly marked. But Karen. That's what everyone called the president of the HOA, and yes, her name really was Karen, had decided she didn't like those lines. She had been campaigning to expand the HOA's control, trying to get neighboring properties to voluntarily join, and then using those new agreements to argue in court that a precedent had been established. In other words, she was trying to build a legal trap. A slow, methodical takeover. And apparently, we were the next target. Karen had even gone as far as filing a fake notice of intent to enforce with the county, which had no legal weight, but looked official. It was all intimidation. Paper tigers. The kind of passive-aggressive warfare that works on people who don't know their rights. But I'm not that kind of person. I've been interrogated by foreign militias, survived ambushes, and jumped from planes into freezing water in the dead of night. You think a clipboard and a fake citation are going to scare me? I don't run. I don't bend. And when it comes to protecting my wife, I sure as hell don't back down. So after Anna calmed down from the porch incident and I sent the video to Sheriff Mendez, I sat at my desk and pulled out a fresh legal pad. I made a list of everything, the dates of harassment, the photos, the printed notices, the attempted physical intimidation. And I wrote one more thing at the top of the list in bold, capital letters: they laid hands on my wife. That made it personal. I wasn't just going to push back. I was going to bury them. Because no amount of paperwork or neighborhood politics justifies aggression. And the moment they crossed that line, they gave me everything I needed to bring them down, not just legally, but publicly. The HOA didn't know it yet, but war had been declared. And I don't fight wars to lose. I made one phone call, and everything shifted. Not to a lawyer, not to 911. I called the one man I knew would respond faster and hit harder than any official channel, Sheriff Ramon Mendez. We served together in Iraq, different branches, same hell. He was military police, always cool under pressure, always ready to stand for what's right. After retiring, he took over law enforcement in this county, and from the day I moved here, he told me, if anyone gives you trouble out there, you don't hesitate. Call me. I had never taken him up on it. Until now. His voice came over the line steady and sharp. You need me to bring backup? 2 HOA enforcers just trespassed on my porch and shoved Anna. I've got the security cam footage, I said. You tell me what the next move is. He didn't hesitate. I'll be there in 30. I wasn't exaggerating. The porch cam caught the whole thing in clear, high-definition video. One enforcer reached out with an open palm and shoved Anna backward when she declined to accept their paperwork. Her body tensed. Her hand caught the wall. My blood boiled every time I watched it. But I didn't just want revenge. I wanted results. Justice. I sent the video to Mendez and started gathering every shred of evidence I had. Emails, printed threats, even the copy of the phony notice of intent to enforce Karen had sent to the county. By the time Mendez's cruiser rolled up to the cabin, red and blue lights off, engine quiet, I had a thick folder ready. He stepped out wearing jeans, boots, and his service pistol on his belt. A badge hung from a chain around his neck. "Let's shut this circus down," he said. We sat at the kitchen table while Anna told him everything. He reviewed the footage silently, jaw tightening with every second. "This is assault," he said plainly. "Trespassing, harassment, impersonating legal authority. All of it." "You think we've got enough to go after them now?" I asked. "Absolutely," he said. "But you want to hear the real kicker?" He tapped on the HOA's official document, the one with Karen's signature. She's listed as a licensed property manager. But this title she's using, enforcement officer, that's not recognized in any state or municipal code. She made it up. So she's playing cop without the badge. Exactly, Mendez nodded. Which means the moment she authorized this visit to your home, she became liable for everything her enforcers did. She can't claim ignorance. She directed the action. She's the head of the snake. That was all I needed to hear. But before we filed charges, I wanted something else. Public exposure. I wanted Karen to know that I wasn't some backwoods pushover who could be bullied with rules and intimidation. I wanted to look her in the eye when the foundation of her little HOA kingdom started to shake. Mendez agreed. "Let's give her one shot to walk into the trap." And walk in, she did. The next morning, around 10:30 a.m., a familiar white Mercedes sedan rolled up to the edge of my property. Karen stepped out, clipboard in hand, wearing a navy blue power suit like she was headed to a courtroom she built herself. I was sitting on the porch with my coffee. Anna stood beside me, wearing her back brace but holding her ground. And Sheriff Mendez leaned against his cruiser parked discreetly to the side of the driveway, sunglasses on, arms crossed, badge glinting in the sunlight. Karen stopped when she saw him. Her stride faltered for the first time since we'd met her. "Ma'am," Mendez said, stepping forward, "you here in any official capacity?" Karen straightened her shoulders. "As president of the Lakefield Shores HOA, I'm here to issue final notice to these property owners. That won't be necessary," Mendez said, cutting her off. He handed her a printed packet. "This is a notice of trespass and cease and desist order. You and your enforcers are no longer permitted to approach or enter this property. Additionally, you are under investigation for criminal impersonation, harassment, and conspiracy to commit assault." Her face drained of color. "Excuse me? We have video evidence, ma'am. And we know about your little side hustle, too, filing fake notices to the county to intimidate property owners into joining your HOA. You can't be serious," she snapped. "I was just enforcing community standards, standards that don't apply here," I said, standing up. "You crossed the line, Karen. Literally and legally. And now, you're going to deal with the consequences." "You don't understand how this works," she said, trying to gather her composure. "We're trying to protect the aesthetic value of the neighborhood." "I served 2 decades overseas," I replied. "You think I care about how my tool shed looks from across a property line? I care about laws. Boundaries. And you broke both." "Ma'am," Mendez said, "I suggest you speak to your attorney before you speak to me again." She turned, stiff and pale, and walked straight back to her car without another word. As she drove away, I could feel it, the tide had turned. Her power wasn't real anymore. It was paper. Ink. Empty signatures. And it was crumbling. But I wasn't done. I sent a digital copy of the video and all the documented harassment to a local investigative journalist I knew from my military nonprofit work. He ran a column about civic corruption. Within 48 hours, the story hit the county news blog, local HOA under investigation for assault and illegal intimidation tactics. The post included still frames from the video, the shove, the notices, the documents. It was damning. And it spread fast. By the end of the week, 3 other homeowners on the edge of the HOA came forward with similar stories. Turns out, Karen had been running her little intimidation campaign for years. Threatening families into joining so she could claim expanded territory and boost her board's budget. But nobody had pushed back. Nobody had fought. Until me. And once someone stands up to a bully, they always fall faster than anyone expects. Karen didn't show up at the next HOA meeting. In fact, she didn't show up at all after that. Word had it she lawyered up, resigned from the board, and sold her house quietly a month later. I wasn't surprised. Because when you use fear to build your kingdom, all it takes is one person without fear to bring it crashing down. The day I filed the lawsuit, I did it not just for Anna, not just for myself, but for every neighbor who had been pushed, harassed, and manipulated by that HOA without ever fighting back. I walked into the county courthouse with a file thick enough to slam on the clerk's counter and make heads turn. Inside it were the security cam recordings of the assault, screenshots of emails, printouts of the fake violation notices, a certified copy of the property boundary map showing we were outside their jurisdiction, and testimonies from 4 other homeowners who had experienced the same harassment tactics. Sheriff Mendez helped me connect with the county's legal advisor, who reviewed everything and said plainly, "You've got them. Dead to rights." I filed charges for civil harassment, criminal trespassing, assault, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and fraudulent misrepresentation. And I wasn't just going after the 2 enforcers. I named Karen directly, as the HOA president who orchestrated the campaign. The judge took one look at the opening motion and scheduled a preliminary hearing that same week. That's when it really started to unravel for them. See, Karen had been playing a long con. She wasn't just president of the HOA, she was also profiting off her position. She'd set up a side business offering compliance consulting services to homeowners she bullied into the HOA. Once they joined, she'd offer them help, for a fee, to correct violations that she and her enforcers had made up in the first place. It was a racket. And thanks to my case, it all came into the light. The morning of the hearing, she walked into the courtroom flanked by a slick-suited attorney and not nearly as confident as she had looked that day on my driveway. Her enforcers didn't even show up. Probably too scared or already cutting deals of their own. My attorney presented the footage first, clear, undeniable evidence of the shove. The courtroom was silent as the video played. Anna sat beside me, calm, collected, her back brace still visible under her blouse. When the judge looked at Karen, his words were sharp and final. "This is not enforcement. This is coercion. And it's unlawful." Our attorney followed it up by listing the statute violations, chapter and verse, and pointing out how the HOA had acted beyond their scope, tried to assert power where none existed, and intentionally targeted us despite being legally exempt from their authority. Karen's lawyer tried to claim we were aggressive homeowners who refused to integrate with the community, but the judge wasn't having it. "This community does not extend to their land," he said flatly. "And even if it did, violence and threats are not protected methods of governance." 2 weeks later, we had the ruling. The court ordered the HOA to pay damages, substantial ones. We were awarded $45,000 for emotional distress and physical harm, plus $20,000 in punitive damages, and our full legal fees. But more importantly, the judge imposed an injunction. From that moment forward, the HOA was permanently barred from any contact with our property, including mailers, visits, inspections, or citations. Any breach would be considered criminal contempt. And Karen? She was removed from her position within 48 hours of the ruling. The HOA board held an emergency session and quietly voted her out. No public statement, no apology, just silence. She sold her house a few weeks later, packed up in the middle of the night, and vanished like a shadow in retreat. The enforcers were never seen again. But the story didn't end there. Our case sparked something. The other neighbors, the ones who had been afraid to speak up, started filing complaints of their own. Within 3 months, the HOA faced 3 additional lawsuits, one of which alleged misappropriation of funds. The board was turned upside down, new elections were held, and a complete audit of the HOA's operations was launched. Turns out, Karen had been diverting funds to cover her consulting gig expenses, gas reimbursements, private lunches, even hotel stays for HOA retreats that never happened. When the dust settled, the HOA was a shell of its former self, smaller, quieter, and entirely restructured. And us? We finally got our peace. Anna and I went back to doing what we came here to do, live simply, enjoy our land, and watch the sun set over the lake without feeling like we were being watched. I installed a new flagpole, sturdier, taller, and raised the American flag with Anna beside me. The same neighbors who once waved from a distance now came over with homemade pies and firm handshakes. You did what we were all too scared to do, one older man said. You stood up to them. And you won. I didn't feel proud. I felt relieved. But there was one thing I did feel fiercely protective. Not just of my wife, but of every man and woman out there who gets bullied by someone hiding behind a title or a rulebook. Because here's the thing, I've fought enemies in uniform and out of uniform. I've seen the real face of control, oppression, and abuse. And I know this, evil doesn't always come with a weapon. Sometimes, it comes with a clipboard and a smile. But no matter how it looks, it can be fought. And it can be beaten. All it takes is someone willing to draw the line and say, not here. Not today. Not to my family. They shoved my wife. And I shoved back, with the law, with the truth, and with every ounce of strength they never saw coming. They thought I was just another quiet homeowner. What they didn't know was that I'm a retired Navy SEAL. And when you threaten the ones I love, I don't retreat. I don't negotiate. I finish the fight.